Hello, and welcome back to this Christian Walk podcast, the show where no topic is too taboo to empower you on your walk with God. I'm your host, Marley B., and it is my privilege to welcome you back to the conversation. Today, I invited three people who have all went through the fiery furnace that is divorce and came out on the other side, not even smelling like smoke. So they are all examples on how God can make even the worst case scenario in a relationship work out for your good. Their stories are magnificent. I can't wait to get into it right now.
Walk with me, talk with me. What you know about God? Will He ride with me? Come and open my eyes for me. Hear my story. Show me more what's in store. And once more, listen, homie, can you walk?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to TCW. Y'all can say something.
Hey.
Y'all looking like, is this time for the questions now? Here we go.
Is the audience gonna come into play?
I ain't gonna come just throwing them that hard at you. I know. But how y'all doing? I like that. Welcome back. Some frequent flyers here. We got Alicia, who has been here before, Katisha, who has been here before, and we got a virgin on the set. We have Darian. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome you guys to TCW. And today we are going to be talking about life after divorce. Okay. As a person that is single in my 40s and been single forever, I don't like the fact that we put stigmas on so many statuses in life, right? As a single person, they want to call you spinster or, oh, what's wrong with you? And all this other stuff. Well, why you haven't done this and all that? And, it's not just for singles. I see, and as I've had these conversations, as people been coming to the show, I talk to people on the street who have been through a divorce. It happens a lot to people who have been through a divorce. And what I want to do now is stamp out that stigma first and foremost, okay? Because a divorce is not who you are. It's just what you've been through. Right? And I think that's why this conversation is so important, and we want to get to the nitty-gritty of it. We know divorce is not something that anybody aspires to, but it's definitely not anything that people should be ashamed of. It should be something we should be able to have open dialogue about and have community that's safe and not judgmental, to where people can learn from our experiences. And that's what this show is all about. So that's why we're going to get into it. So first of all, I just want to give you guys a chance to kind of introduce yourselves and just kind of say when you got married, how long you were married, and how long it's been since you got divorced. We'll start with you, Darian.
Darian, I got married 2014, 2015, not really sure on the date, natural man thing. We're not too good with the dates. Was married for about a good 3 years. And then,
So you've been divorced about what, 5 years now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just about.
All right. And Alicia?
Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia, now Massey. So I have actually remarried since my divorce in 2017. But I was married for probably around 4 years. And I was divorced for 4 years before I got remarried. I just got remarried in June of this year. So there is life after divorce, ladies. Sometimes you just gotta hold on to that Prince Charming come.
I know that's right. And I was so used to calling you. I got to the gig of calling you Pastor T. Now I gotta change that up. You just changed it up on me. But I'm so happy for you. I would never get mad at it. Congratulations on your nuptials.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And Katisha?
So hello, everybody. I am Katisha Freeman. I was married in October of 2011 after a 5-year relationship. And we were married, I'll say we separated in 2013 and finally got divorced in 2018.
So you had a long stretch there for the actual dissolution of the marriage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. It's people
Oh,
that
yeah.
been separated like 30 years out here.
That part.
And it's like, at what point will you just take some bottles to the store and take this to prepaid legal and let's make it happen? But again, this is not about judgment. But I get that. I get that, you know, getting to the point where you just have to go ahead and get the paperwork together is a whole other leap in itself. I can see that. So, and then you just got to do, you know, you got to make sure that this is what you want.
This is what you want, right?
Right. When you
Yeah.
first had that like you separated in 2013, right? That was what, about 2 years into your marriage?
Yes.
And usually, you know, you hear about the terrible twos in marriage. Do you think that just kind of took you out, or do you think that it was deeper than the terrible twos?
It was deeper than the terrible twos. You know, literally there was some red flags that happened. And, you know, I tried to, you know, work through them and, you know, that sort of thing. And it didn't work. And, you know, even after the fact, I tried to work it out, because when I got married, I promised myself I was making a vow to God, not just myself, right? And my husband at the time. I was making my vow to God. So for me, it was, I wanted to go through every single step that I could to fix my marriage before actually getting divorced. And so that was that long period of time where, you know, we would try to, you know, work things out and things just weren't working. And, you know, finally had to pray about it again. And, you know, finally it was just like, you know what, let it go. And that's what happened.
Did you guys find that hesitancy? Of course, it should not be something that is taken lightly, right? And so did you find yourself having those delayed, as far as when you come to that realization of, I need to end this, to actually taking the steps to end it? Did you find a delay that you had a delay in that process, Alicia?
Well, I did, but mine was happening in the marriage, right? So I would say kind of like what Katisha was saying, like, and there were red flags, like even when we were dating, but like even when we first got married, it was like those first 2 years, it was rough. And I'm like, this is not the way I envisioned or pictured the married life to be, right? And my marriage ended due to multiple counts of infidelity. So, you know, I was the wife that, like, once I found out about it the first time, it was like, okay, you know, we can work on this, you know, because you start looking at yourself as a woman like, well, maybe there's something I can do differently or I can do better. And you're competing with another woman who you really don't know anything about. But then once it happened like 2 and 3 more times within that, you know, for that 4-year period, I was fine. Like I just got to the point where I was just like, okay, I know this cannot be what God wants for me. Like God cannot want me to just continue to go through this heartache, especially when I was doing everything that I felt like I could. You know, like what did I do? Like I have journals. When I was moving, I was looking at back, and I was like in my journal, I was writing about divorce, and I was like, dang, I've been writing about divorce for a long time. Before I actually was like, look, this is not going to work. But even after we were separated, we did try again, you know, and we kind of went through that rekindling process. But on the 366th day that it takes for you to go get 1 year, 1 day, on that day I went and I filed for my divorce, because at that point, you know, I knew I didn't want to be married to him anymore. So I went ahead and I didn't wait for him to, you know, do the procedures or anything like that. I started the process on my own, because I didn't want to be one of those people that was separated for 30 years, because I was trying to move on with my life.
Do you feel like you had a delay from the decision to the action, Darian? You know, and I'm glad that you mentioned, Alicia, about that 1 year, especially here in North Carolina. I know at least here, you got to be separated officially at 1 year before you can actually go into it. And some people have that delay because of that. And then some people have that delay because they just don't want to face what that path of divorce is leading to. But I'm glad that you made that point. So and above that year separation that's required by law, Darian, did you have that did you find that you had a delay in actually doing the action for more than just what the law required?
Yeah, because in towards the end of my marriage, we had already separated. We were living in two different homes, but we still moved as if we were one household, because there was kids involved. So then we started counseling, which really helped me out, and it's something that I hold on to this day. And that counselor told us was attack the problem and not the person. Because when your emotions get involved in what you're arguing about, you tend to start pointing fingers and saying derogatory things towards each other. Because that was what mine was. We were very vicious towards each other verbally. And it wasn't a good look. So it had me being somebody that I wasn't. But and in all of that, I take my accountability in how I handle things, because I can tend to be a little bit of a hothead. So, and that I just thought it was just regular mad, but it wasn't. So that was something that I took from the counseling. But even after we were divorced, like we literally went to the courthouse together, got divorced, and then went out to breakfast as if nothing had changed between us, because we had been trying to fix it at that point, but it was still something that we both felt that we needed to do a fresh start, just in case us trying to fix it didn't work.
And I'm glad that you pointed out that the trying back, right? Because when you think about the end of a marriage, and a lot of people don't think about the fact that it's like a death, and you have
Yes.
to mourn it, and you go through those 5 stages of grief, right? The denial, isolation, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, and the acceptance ultimately. But why you got to go through all of them? Not everybody gets to that point where when you think about that third step of bargaining, did you find yourself trying to get the person back? And did you feel like it was because of, and what was your feeling at that point? That maybe you were wrong, that it was something, that this was not a toxic thing that I was in? Or is it that I just want to have this person back because I can't do better? What's your reasoning behind that?
Well, mine was I never got into marriage for it to fail. And being that I've seen so many, go by the wayside. But then I saw some that held on and was strong, and they had been through so much adversity, but their love and their commitment to each other, they weathered the storm. And
so you were okay with weathering the storm, even though you were much aware that you were in a toxic marriage?
I was, because my whole issue was, because I don't know what she feels is what her issues was. I only can speak on mine.
Right.
So I felt as though my communication lacked at certain times. I was a bit selfish.
But you at this point, you thinking about what you did wrong.
Right. Because there isn't one person in the marriage. So if I can't figure for somebody else, but I can try to figure out what's wrong with me and try to adjust and try to compromise and have all of those things. But when there is when a toxic relationship, there is really no is really no fixing something, because it's always going to be something wrong or underlying issue somewhere. That's what I feel about it. And as long as you have those underlying issues, that like forgiveness, you know, somebody do something wrong, you say you forgive them, but you really don't, and because disrespect is one of those things. Like, okay, I forgive you for it, but it still plays in the back of your mind. And then if you come to a similar situation like that, boom, it's right back up. Just like when people bring up the past and your whatever
Repassion.
issue that you did, right? You're not over it. You
Right.
can't say that you're over something and you bring it up. Now that's what I mean in attacking the problem versus the person. Because if you've forgiven someone for something, then you're supposed to go ahead and let that go. And if you can't let it go, then how do you fix it? And is it worth fixing?
Is it worth it? Now that's a great question. So Alicia, I know you said when you made that decision to be done with it, you were done with it. Did you ever have a moment of bargaining? Uh-oh, it looks like we might have a frozen screen
Your
for Alicia.
question, Marley?
I'm sorry.
What was your question?
Oh yeah, it said, did you ever have a moment when you felt like you were bargaining? Like you felt like, do I want to really end this, or can I give this one more chance after you had a divorce, but then you going through those stages of grief of mourning the divorce? Did you have that moment to where you like, maybe I don't want to end my marriage, or maybe I want my husband back? Did you have one of those moments?
Oh yeah, definitely. But mine was more so birthed out of fear, because I didn't know, like, okay, well, am I ever going to be in a relationship again? And, it's just, because at this time I'm like 37, 38 years old. And even after, going through the separation and the divorce, I was like, well, I'm not getting married again. Like I was pretty much cool and content with just being one of those high-powered, strong women. Like I don't need no man, I'll date or whatever. But I wasn't like in need of a relationship. Now, keep in mind, like right before my divorce was final is when I met my husband, my current husband. And when we first started dating, like I know I pushed him away from the idea of marriage, because I would say it so many times, like, I don't want to get married again. I don't want to get married. I didn't even want to be his girlfriend, And I was like, I don't want the title girlfriend, but I had to do work, like even after separation and going through that whole like I had to really take an internal look at myself to figure out, okay, why are you going through this? And at some point I realized that I felt like, okay, well, my divorce was like a punishment from God. Like he punished me because you shouldn't have got married in the first place. Like you should have saw those red signs, and maybe you shouldn't have did that. And well, what if I missed the sign again? And so the bargaining really was from a spiritual aspect, not with like trying to go back and forth with my ex. It was really like me and God, like, am I doing this right? Do you want me to go back? Like, are you gonna bless me again?
Right.
Like that's how it was. Like, am I gonna get blessed again? And that sort of thing. But eventually I got to that point where I think I just began to realize that I did deserve to be loved in a special way. And once God kind of opens your eyes to show you have been disrespected, and I do want you to be happy and holy in a marriage, but there were steps that I had to take to get there. Even like I said earlier, even though my marriage ended in infidelity, there were selfish acts, like Gary was saying, like there were things within me that I knew I had to fix before I got deeply involved into another relationship, because if I didn't, I would end up in the same situation that I was in before. So that's where that whole bargaining came in for me. It really was it was fearful. Like, I don't know what the other side of this looks like, but I had to trust God in it and just know, okay, I knew personally I didn't want to be married to them. I didn't want to be married to him, but I just didn't know what the other end of that was going to be like. So it was either take a leap of faith and be single and see what the end gonna be, or stay in a marriage and be unhappy. And so I ended it.
Stepped out. And that's a, it's so many, when we think in terms of stepping out on faith, sometimes we even put that idea in a box. Like we save it for, you know, going to a new job or transitioning in some other form of life, but we don't think about it in terms of leaving one chapter of a marriage and going to another chapter. Like, this is a leap of faith. We're looking at it like, I just got divorced. It's not, hey, this is a leap of faith, me trusting God with the rest of my life on the other side of this chapter.
Like you said, it is a death. And you
Mhm.
mourn it, you grieve it, you have good days and bad days, and because it's like you have to repaint the canvas, but it is the death of a relationship, and you feel all of that. I don't understand how people can just hop from relationship to relationship, especially from being married and then 2 weeks later you married. I don't understand how people can do that. I just don't understand, because to me it's like it took about 2 years to get through that whole process and be to the point where I was ready to have the conversation about being married.
And I can definitely see, depending on, and that's why I'm glad that I'm a woman of faith. So death is different to me, because it's so many people out there, death is final. You know what I mean? Like, you think death of something is the end. And they think if that didn't last, there is no life after death. And this conversation is important because there is an afterlife to that, you know? So, Katisha, let me ask you, did you have a moment of bargaining and where you felt like, did you have that, let's be real, that something is better than nothing moment?
I did. Yep. So similar to Alicia, well, actually it was a combination, right? My battle was not only spiritual, right? Because I felt like, God wouldn't let me down in this. But then also, the stigma that comes with it, right? So at this point, the point of divorce, I was looking at myself as being a single mom of 3 kids. And, it was that stigma, nobody's going to want to be with me. I'm not going to find a man that'll love me and my kids, all of that. And so all of that kind of played into it. But I also knew I did love my husband, right? And that was something I didn't want to give up on. And so I fought hard for it. And it really came to the point where I had to recognize sometimes the battle that we're fighting to keep is something that God is really trying to get rid of, right? And so I had to take a moment and step back, and I'm like, God, what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to tell me in this moment? And when it became clear, it literally was a moment where it was like, okay, let's do this. And there was no necessary, setbacks. I felt at ease with the decision. It hurt. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely hurt. Many sad days, all that good stuff. But God saw me through it. And I think it was because he knew that wasn't the plan for me.
I think that's the difference of going through a divorce with faith opposed to without. When you're able to have that opportunity to consult God and get in alignment with him, there's a certain security that comes with it.
Yeah, definitely.
But we just got to be mindful to bring those things to him, because we can overlook God, especially in emotional situations like divorce, death, even a wedding. You know what I'm saying? You get so wrapped up in your own emotions sometimes. It seems like we can easily leave God out of those decisions, out of those conversations that we have. We just have them with ourselves. Like, oh, this got to be it because this happened. His mama's birthday on the same day as my grand auntie. So this got to be meant to be, right? I think so. We say stuff like that to think that, and give ourselves an excuse internally, subconsciously, to leave God out, thinking, oh, he already showed me he in it because of that. But no, you need to still talk and consult with God. So that's a very, very great point. So I thank you for bringing that up, Katisha. So let me ask you this. I'll start with you, Darian. What did your marriage slash divorce, the process of divorce, what did it teach you about yourself? And I know that you
Well,
got that the hothead situation, but you already knew that about yourself, right?
yeah, I knew that
Yeah.
myself.
So
That's
what did you come out on the other side of this learning about you that you didn't know before?
well, that I am very family oriented, right? But it also um, allowed me to work on my communication and how I deal with situations, period, relationships, friendships, whatever have you. So it it allowed me to just grow into a better person, be a better friend, a better brother, um, better son. Uh, when I do get into relationships, situationships, I just put my cards on the table. This is who I am. These are the people that support me and who I love. And that's the other thing that it did. Because a long time because me and my ex-wife, we dated for almost 10 years before we actually got married. So in that time, I got separated from a lot of my family. And that didn't sit well with me. But what the divorce did was show me where my love was, where my strength was uh, going to come from to get me through the situation of being a father of 4 that wasn't mine, trying to be a good husband, and all of these things. So that's what it did for me. It showed me where my strength was. It showed me where I'm always supported, and the love from and you're my sister, so the love from you and everybody else in the family, it just made me stronger. It made me want to do better, and just happy. I'm way happier. And I hate to say I had good times there. Don't get me wrong about that, but I'm just more at peace, and I'm happy because I can not do what I want, but if I wanted to, I could. And I get to spend time with my family. Like that's the number one thing to me. And my friends, like is
Found out
that's
in that union, you needed that once you were isolated from it.
yeah. Because it's always something that I've had. I've never like the group of friends that in addition to since I've been in Charlotte, that's an addition to my family. My friends and my family has been there forever. I don't recall any times without, well, except for when I was at college and we were all away doing our thing there. But past that point, like I just was never without family. So um, I thought that my little family would be in addition to the grand scheme of things and just be just a big family, and I could just be happy that way. And she wasn't it for me. Like she may be that for somebody else, and I know I'm gonna be that for somebody else. But in the scheme of things, one thing that I won't lose ever again is my family. And when people talk about unconditional love, I really know what that is, and I am very appreciative of that. And also, it did bring me back a little bit closer to God. I ain't gonna say I don't go to church like that. Like I may go once here and there, but I talk to Him every day. I no matter what's going on in my day, I'm thankful because God gave me breath to be alive, to experience and learn something new. So those are all the things that I gain at the end of my marriage, which brings me life, which, is what this conversation is about.
Alicia, what did your experience in marriage and your ex, because I believe all people are teachers, they all teach us something, right? Experiences teach us something, but people are all teachers in our lives. So what did your ex teach you? What did your marriage teach you about you that you did not know?
The first thing was to trust my own intuition and trust what I was already feeling like. Even before getting married, I had hesitations and reservations, and it was like we were too far in to call everything off, and it was just like, nah, I don't know. But during that time, or even after, I'm a single parent now. My ex and I, we didn't have any kids together, but the fact of the reality is my daughter was introduced to him when she was like 8 years old. So now she's going into high school, she's a teenager, and her mom is getting divorced. And so I had to be transparent for her. I remember I would cry in front of my daughter. She would be looking at me like, what's going on? But I also made sure to communicate to her like what was going on, because I didn't want her to think that it was her fault or anything like that. But my daughter also taught me some things, because I remember one day she was telling me like she already knew everything that was going on, and like things I was trying to hide from her in my marriage. She already knew those things would happen. She already knew how I wasn't happy. She already knew that he was cheating on me. My ex, he had 3 kids, so she told me because they were so aware of, and you mentioned the word toxic. They were aware of the toxic environment even before like we were willing to admit onto that. So that's where it goes back to that intuition and just like listening to myself and not being afraid of that. Another thing that it taught me was how to be resilient. I had to bounce back. When you've been attached to someone for all these years and it's, you have plans for it to be this way for the rest of your life, and then all of a sudden it's no longer like that. There were moves that I had to make independent now, and because I couldn't, you can't just stop and say, well, I'm gonna just sit in the house for 2 years until I get it together. No, because I still got to take care of my daughter. I still got to work. I went back to school. So there were like things that I put off while I was married that I was able to pick back up. I brought my first house right after getting divorced. So it was just like things that he didn't want to accomplish together. I was finally able to kind of put that pep in my step and do those things to show me and my daughter like, hey, look, it don't matter what happened in life. Like you can't stop. You have to keep going. You still have to dream. You still have to have goals. And you can't let, one thing hinder you, or the end of one thing hinder you from moving forward. So, yeah, I just had to keep moving.
What did your spouse teach you about your former spouse, Katisha, teach you about you and that experience of marriage and going through divorce? What did you learn about yourself?
I think my biggest takeaway is that I'm stronger than I know. And I say that from an inner strength. My divorce was a result of infidelity with multiple women, but mine happened as I was pregnant with twins. And so that whole process itself was very stressful on me. I actually wound up going into premature labor due to some circumstances that happened, and fighting through all of that, right? And then also realizing I deserve better and I have to do better and be better for my kids, and especially my daughter at the time, who was seeing me go through this. She was old enough, similar to Alicia, she was old enough to see this and see what I was going through, see the actions that were happening and understand it at the same time. And so I had to show her that you have to respect yourself enough to say, hey, enough is enough. I can't, this is not what God planned for me, and this is not what's going to be in my life. And I literally had to do that. And even, the times of trying to reconcile, literally as soon as I saw that sign, I was like, you know what? Nah, this is not what God promised me. You're not showing me what he promised me. And, I had to it takes that strength, because again, I was, in the back of my mind was that, hey, you about to be single with 3 kids. Like, what you gonna do? Is a man really gonna want you, right? But at the end of the day, it really, really came down to my personal relationship with God and him showing me, you know what, you got this, I got you, and I'm gonna help you get through this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then when you think about, because let's be real, this is this Christian walk, right? And while we know we discuss God, we discuss church, we are really, we discuss the realities of it, right?
That part.
Which is church folk, right?
Uh-uh.
Well, a lot of times, especially when you're in the church, right? And the D word might as well be the F word to a lot of folks. And I'm just wondering, did you get any backlash? And if so, how did you handle it? And it doesn't have to be so much from church folk. It could be family or friends. Did you have those people that just were trying to say, stay with him, don't do that. You don't want to be divorced, do you? Did you have that kind? Did you have anybody that surprisingly or not surprisingly came at you like that? And how did you handle it? Let's start with you, Alicia.
So, true story. My ex and I, we went to church together. We both were ministers at our church. So that was another reason for my hesitation in getting a divorce, because we get a divorce, we're both ministers, and everybody's looking like, what's going on with y'all? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on here? So for me, like it was, I remember one Wednesday going to Bible study. This is right after we got separated. And I literally had a panic attack and had to leave out of the church because I just didn't know, like, how am I going to handle this? Like, I don't want to answer no questions. Don't ask me where he is. I started thinking about, what if he bring another woman to church? It was, all of these thoughts started flooding through my head. And at this time, like, he had just kind of like he was just like a ghost. He was gone. And I didn't know if he was going to come back to the church, and I didn't know what was going to happen. So I'm like, he just did all of this to me and like just dumped this, and now I have to deal with all of this. Like, this is all stuff that's going on in my mind. Like, I was being very dramatic, but at the time it didn't seem like I was being dramatic. It's real life. But luckily, my pastor and his wife, through that whole transition of us going through a divorce, like, we put methods into play. Like, okay, if he comes to church with another woman, like, how do you want it? Like, we're going to tell you if he brings another woman to church, so that way either I can leave or I can stand in the back, or I, could avoid them. So it was just little things like that we had to, that I had to put into place so that it wouldn't be uncomfortable, because the number one concern for my pastor at that time was that we both continued to grow spiritually, and that neither one of us felt like, oh, well, you're taking sides. You're taking her side because I cheated on her, or you taking his side because of bro code, you know him wrong, or, whatever the case is. And so, kind of once I got through those couple of sessions, like, my pastor, he wasn't backing down. He wasn't going to let me just fall out. Like, he did everything in his power, him and his wife, to make sure that we both were protected. So I'm really thankful for that. But yeah, I was afraid of that stigma. I was afraid of what people were going to say. And when you have church, you got your testimony time, right? I remember one Sunday he decided he was going to tell his testimony in the church. I'm sitting on the front row of the church, and he wants to tell his testimony on why he is getting a divorce. And when I said, he didn't hold nothing back. And I'm sitting there, and if I could have ran out like through a window as fast as I could. Like I would have just ran out through the window. But that was probably the most horrific experience. I still feel like I don't feel like that was a moment for him to try to be free. I really feel like that was a moment of let me just put it out here because like if you wanted to get free from like you could have called me like, hey, look, Alicia, you know, I want to just tell my testimony, yada yada yada. Like you could have given me the heads up or something like that. Like then I could have been in the back or something, but I'm in the front row of the church and you're telling your testimony. So then after that, a few of the older ladies was like, "Oh, girl, you know you gonna get through this." Da, 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 da. And like at that point, I was just like, I don't want to come here no more. You know what I'm saying? Because too many people are in our business. Like we had done a good job of trying to crowd control, but even even after that, that lasted for maybe about a month, and eventually people just got tired of the story and they just kind of felt like he was just using it to get attention, because I had basically moved on and it was just like
it definitely felt like an attention move.
Yeah. And so and finally, my pastor was like, you need to stop telling the story.
That now that's different when
yeah,
folks stop wanting to hear the story.
And somebody had to bring it to his attention. He was like, do you realize every time you tell this story, like you are making her relive this moment? Like we understand you
ripping open the wound every time.
Like we realize you trying to get free from it, but you need to find another way to deal with it and manage it because she relives it every time you tell her. So eventually it was stop telling the story, find another way to tell your story. So so that was my encounter with the stigmas and everything, but we got through it. Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. Man, Darian, did you have some issues where people were, kind of like, what you doing? Why you doing that? Don't do that. Or, you grew up a PK, right?
Yeah,
I teach you all the time that your mama a deacon pretty much. And so, but we know she's a minister. You a pastor's kid, but even if you didn't, get it directly, did you feel like you would? How did that feel for you to be able to say, okay, I'm ending this marriage, even though people might have not known that if it was healthy or not, it's still marriage. And sometimes church people don't care what you're going through because they'll tell you can get beat in the street. They'll say, clean yourself, baby, and go be a wife. It's some people out there that will say that. But how was it for you when you decided to make that leap?
Well, I talked to my mom a lot about it. She talked to both of us about it, right? And she always told us both, well, if you can't get along, get gone. So if you feel as though
that's so Mama Donna right there.
And she would say, yeah, y'all want to work this out, go ahead and do that. But if y'all gonna continue this arguing, fighting, pointing who did what and keeping score, then y'all don't need to be together. And it rang true. Like you can't keep score in a marriage because it's supposed to be one, and which you do is accounted to her, and what she does is accounted to you. So yeah, that was what I got, and I was afraid to get the "I told you so" from a lot of my family and friends, and because certain family members and friends, I do hold their opinion in high regard, just strictly because of the relationship that we have, because there is no have with me with my friends and family. So I didn't want that. It was like kind of an embarrassment to me because like I had failed at something and I didn't like being viewed as a failure. And that's what thinking about, that's what really scared me about divorce. Like I didn't want the view as a failure. And because I've always been a person that could come up with solutions, and I couldn't figure it out. And when I realized I couldn't figure it out because it wasn't for me. And that's how I dealt with that. But I will say this, where I thought I was gonna get the I told you shows, I didn't get them. It wasn't even a mention. It was a lot of love. So, you know, it's the fear that grasps people and holds you, that you can't do that because you never know what's on the other side of that door.
The people who out there who feel the need that when somebody is down, that they need your opinion or your negative remarks, hold that, because it's the I mean, if you don't have anything positive to say, please, for the love of everything good and for the love of everything that require hot sauce, shut up. You know what I mean? We don't need that. Hold that to yourself, right? Now, let me ask you this, right? This is going to be not so much, it don't have to be specific to your situation, but I'm just curious about your feeling about it, right? There is a lot of talk about out there about prenups, right? And I am very interested, as you guys are on the other side of divorce, right? I'm not sure if you had a prenup, if you want to share that or not. I'll leave that to your discretion, right? But I'm wondering, do you think that is something that is a good idea? I know it's such this big stigma of talking about the end of a marriage at the beginning, but is it a responsible thing to do? Is it something you wish you would have did if you didn't? I'm interested in knowing. Let's start with you, Katisha.
I did not have a prenup. I think it just really boils down to the person. If you know the person, and I say that because my ex, during the course of our marriage, started a business, right? But even through divorce, I didn't want any of that. Like, all I wanted was my name and my sanity.
Go, Tina.
It got to that point. I just want out. I just want my name. That's all. Like, right. I don't want no spousal support. I don't want no child support. I just want my name and my sanity.
Did he say the name got my daddy blood on it? Did he go all the way?
That's it. That was all I wanted. And so, that for me, that's, that. And even to this day, like, we have a good relationship, but there's no ill will. If I need something, I can call him. If he needs something, he can call me. I feel like, and, looking ahead, right? The guy I'm dating now has a very good, prominent business. And, prenup is nowhere in my mind, hasn't crossed his mind, because we have that relationship that we've built with each other. And, there's not that thought that, oh, if we get married or when we get married, she's going to take everything if we get divorced. That doesn't cross. So, for me, it hasn't been a conversation. I don't think that I would. I really feel like it's something I get from the financial side. I get you're protecting, what you've had beforehand. But I don't, it doesn't jive with me.
So you think it's something, would you be insulted if somebody brought it up to you? Like,
not if you're a millionaire and you got all this stuff, I can understand, you trying to protect what you have, right? But if you coming at me and we equal or we not equal, and like, are you really coming at me like that? Yeah.
Like, really, you 1,000 there, my dude, and you want to come and ask me about
you took the word right out of my mouth.
I wasn't gonna say it. I was trying to be,
Hey, and some people only 1,000 there around tax season. Let's be all the way real. You're not 1,000 there all year round.
Right. When you hold that 1,000 for 365 days, then you 1,000 there.
Right. We can talk about the up. I get that.
Right.
that part.
Then we'll talk about that.
So what you think about the concept of a prenup, Alicia?
I mean, I'm with Katisha on that one. Like, if one of us got millions and, one of us is a thousandaire, then I think it's a conversation that should be had. And the only reason why, I say that is because, I think when people go into marriage, you go in with good intentions. You don't go in expecting the marriage to fail. But, we are human and sometimes things do happen. And, if it ever does get to the point where divorce is on the table, people can change and people act differently. And, you go in thinking, oh, they would never do me like this. I mean, like we see it out, like this is movie talk to me, like this is not real life. But I mean, if you have to protect your assets, then you gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, if we both thousandaires, like, I don't think that's you know, you keep your thousand, I keep my thousand, and we go
Right,
out
like,
there.
boy, put that up. Go ahead.
Let's just go out there play. But you do have to think about yeah, because like you just never know what'll happen. Like you just never and so I don't think a prenup means that you don't necessarily like love someone or you're expecting the marriage to not end. I don't think that's what that means. You just have to be careful, especially if you're someone who's been through a divorce before that kind of got ugly. I mean, because let's be real about it, even if you sign a prenup, the only way it comes into play is if divorce is on the table. So as long as both parties are working hard and making the marriage live and continue to make the marriage thrive, listen, your million is my million. So, we don't have to worry about that. So that's just the way I see it.
I get that. And I was wondering, is it kind of looking at it the same way as, because, nobody while they living want to talk about death.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's something
Exactly.
that a lot of times responsible people learn to face,
Right.
And I'm wondering if more people adopted the concept of prenups, would it be good for people or no? Because will it make the separation easy? Because I've seen a lot of nasty divorces. And it would be nice if everything was just kind of like, all right. But, of course, whatever happened at that point, depending on you talking about, sometimes it could be 6 months, sometimes it could be 6 years, sometimes it could be 30 years that you're talking about. However, you are really a whole different person at this point. Y'all in a whole different state of being and living, and what might have been put in place at that time won't even probably be applicable. You got a whole different address, assets have changed, all kinds of things. And I'm just wondering, like, is it something that could be considered? What you think overall as a man, Darian, about the concept of a prenup?
Well, the concept of a prenup is to protect yourself financially, right? So just say that you are having issues within your marriage and you do find out that person is a vicious person and you don't have a prenup in place and they hit you for everything that they can allotted to them under the law. So it's not a bad idea, but it's how it's presented. You can't be underhanded about it. It has to be an open and serious discussion about where you all are in life. Because if you love each other, then that it should be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll sign that. I got my own. Or, we may build something together that you may have to separate, because even in a prenup can be broken due to infidelity or any, it's underlined. It's too many words in that thing.
Depending on how it's built, from what I understand, with any contract, right? So, but that's a great point. And so I think how it's presented is a huge point to kind of stand out, right? Because I think a lot of times when you think about prenup, it's this thing where somebody say, here, sign here. But when you come to the person and say, hey, I think we should see an attorney and kind of figure out what's best that can protect us both, should something happen. If it's presented that way, it seems like it might be a little bit more, you might be more open to it. Of course, it's not something you want to talk about, but it's something you might be more open to considering possibly. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if that's something that people think about, because you don't really hear about prenups too much in regular societies, but you
Right.
do hear about people in regular communities, regular people, us regular thousandaires and below, that stay in a marriage specifically because it's cheaper to keep her.
Cheaper to
You
keep
know,
us.
it's cheaper to
It's
keep her.
finance. It's
So
definitely.
true.
You know, so I just think, because of that issue, you know, I don't know. I just think maybe it should be more openly adopted, or at least discussed. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents about that outside looking in, right? So let me ask this, right? So when you think about forgiveness, did you forgive did you forgive yourself? And then did you forgive the other person about the marriage not being successful? And how did you know that you did? Because one thing, like you said earlier, Darian, people would say, "Oh, I forgive you," oh, whatever. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually really forgive. And when you forgive him, because it feel different, it hit different. When you hear somebody that got the same name on TV on the commercial, you don't go, why your mama
Friend.
name you that? Because those be the things that trigger, and when forgiveness is not there yet. But then before you know it, years go, days go, however long it takes. And then you realize, dang, I really have forgiven them. And then when you think about it, we put so much focus on forgiving them, but we forget to forgive ourselves. It's not always about marriage. It could be just in regular relationships. We don't forgive ourselves for what we allow, what we enable, what we overlook, the red flags that was there day one that we was like, it could be worse. But you got to forgive yourself for that, just like you got to forgive them for whatever acts they did committed against you, right? So did you forgive her yet, Darian? And did you forgive yourself? And how do you know?
Have I forgiven her? Yes, strictly because she taught me a lot. She taught, I got a lot of lessons from our marriage, and it's grown me as a person. And before, when we first was going through it, I really, really could not hear her name. I couldn't, anybody mentioning her, because it was always a Darian and Cassandra thing, or wherever I go, my work, whatever they were at, they asked old friends, they asked about her. So that would mean, like, then I would get very defensive and angry. Like, a couple of weeks ago, one of my friends had came down. He said, "Hey, have you talked to Cassandra or whatever?" I said, "Nope, haven't talked to her." He was like, "Oh, okay." So then he went off into this spiel about, because I guess they're still Facebook friends or whatever, how her life was going to this point. That's good for her. It
Felt
was,
genuinely happy for her?
yeah. I mean, because everybody deserves to be happy, right? And like I said earlier, she wasn't the one for me. And I know I'm gonna be who I am for somebody else. And if she's found happiness, that's great. I'm still in search of it. I'm still working on me. I have forgiven myself to a certain point, but it was the repetitiveness of certain things that I still haven't forgiven myself for, and I allowed it to happen. Just disrespectful thing that happened during the course of our marriage, and then once again happened again in the trying to fix it stage. So it was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're never going to change, and as long as you're doing those actions, I'm going to have this reaction, and I couldn't do that. I wasn't going to do that. I had worked on myself, and I had built my confidence back up. Too much to allow that to happen again.
So you say that you still haven't forgiven yourself. Have you actively been trying to do it, or you just never thought about it?
No, I think about it and I work on it, but not being in a real relationship, it's not put into practice.
Forgiving
So,
yourself doesn't happen in a relationship. It should happen as a single.
mm-mm,
So
no, no,
you mentioned before that you did therapy, like with her counseling. Had you
right.
considered it for just yourself?
I hadn't.
That's something you might want to think about. Because another question that I'm gonna ask it pretty much after this. We're gonna come back to that though. But forgiving yourself is something you want to do now, right? Because the best gift that you can do for the next one is not bring baggage from a previous one. So let's put a pin in that for just a moment. So,
Right.
Alicia, let me ask you, have you forgiven him? Have you forgiven yourself? How do you know?
So mine is a little different than Darian, because I actually forgave myself first. And that's simply because, I mean, I'm with myself 24 hours a day. So I knew the feelings that I was having, the thoughts that I was constantly having on repeat, the anxiety that it was causing, the stress that it was causing. So, I just had to get to a place where I began to pinpoint like why I was feeling this way, and at first I didn't even think about it as I need to forgive myself. I'm just thinking, okay, well, I need to just heal from the divorce. But no, I had to go back and, like you said, look at some of the signs that I missed, like putting a lot of blame on myself. It's your fault. You shouldn't have done that. So just kind of had to like going through and uprooting all of those thoughts. Forgiving him, now that took some time. It took a lot of time because seeing him made me cringe. Hearing his name, I didn't want any good to come in his life because I'm like, I felt like I was the best woman to you, and now
It
like
was like this with it, like
yeah, like this is your
yes,
fault. You broke us. You did this. It's you. You did it. Had you not have done this, I wouldn't be in this situation. Um, so it took a couple of years for me to forgive him. And the only way I know is because I began to only want the best for him. Only wanting him to be happy because I began to realize that even though these actions did happen, like he did it, but it wasn't personal. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, as a woman, it's hard. But I had to he did it, but it wasn't personal. And I'm glad Darian is on here to kind of give that male perspective because these were actually, but and to go back to the counseling, like I had to go get some help. I had to talk to somebody, like, because you gotta unpack this stuff. And that's in realizing, okay, well, yeah, he did it, but these were events that happened, and this is kind of the male perspective of cheating, and it was just like, no, it was personal. That's how it was at first. No, it was personal. He knew he was married when he was doing that. Like, he knew who I was, but it wasn't personal. It still doesn't negate the fact that it ended our relationship. Like, I mean, that doesn't give anybody a pass, man or woman. But that's how I got to the place where I could forgive him, and not continue to hold that grudge over him. So yeah, that's kind of my backdrop. But I had to forgive myself early on because it was too that load was too heavy for me to carry. It was too much.
that's it right there. That's it right there. And Katisha, have you forgiven him? Have you forgiven yourself? And how do you know?
Yes and yes. I went through therapy. And, that process allowed me to not only heal, but also forgive myself. And it also taught me that I have to forgive him because we share kids, right? And I am not the bitter one. I'm not going to keep him from his kids, none of that. So I had to, I'd say, speed up my process, right? At least to the point where when I saw him, I didn't want to kill him, right?
So you had to fake it till you made it.
Yeah, I had to fake it till I make it. And it really, I think the aha moment was, when I found out that he had gotten, well, I thought was engaged, but apparently he was already married. When I found out that he had gotten engaged, I had the conversation with him and we just straight up had a serious talk. And I was like, well, why didn't you tell me? He was like, well, I didn't want to hurt you. I was like, you think you can hurt me now? Like, I'm past that, right? I said, but you deserve to be happy. And, before I knew it, I was like, did I just say that? Like, after all he did to me, did I just say that? Like,
did I grow in my sleep,
yeah,
Jesus?
Exactly. I was like, that's growth for real.
You became a Lifetime movie, girl.
I promise you, I was like, but that was an aha moment for me. And at that point, that's when I knew absolutely that I had been over this, right? And I could now begin to talk about it. And when I talked about it, I didn't have those feelings of shame. I didn't have those feelings of wanting to commit homicide. It was just that process. And like I said, like when God finally said, let it go, and I let it go, it was over. It was like, it was just, whoo, I was light. I was lighter. And so that's really how I know. It was just that aha moment was like, and like I say, now we can talk, we can have conversations. And it's funny because I'd be like, I'm not your wife. Like, you ain't got to worry about that, right?
Yeah.
So, it's to that point where it's just like, God did it and I can see it. I can see that growth.
Yes, I get
can
that.
I just say, like, Darian, Katisha, y'all both kind of mentioned the whole co-parenting thing and going through. I feel like I had a little bit easier because we didn't have any attachments. It was like, we done. Like, we don't have to split no property. We ain't got no kids. I don't have to see you. So like, literally, if we wanted to talk, it would have to be like a forced conversation. So I'm grateful that we didn't have any kids in our union because honestly, like I don't know. I don't know if I would even be on this Zoom tonight. I don't know.
That's interesting because even if outside of, our kids that we had together, he became my daughter's father, right? He's been in my oldest daughter's life since she was 4 years old. So he was dad.
Yeah.
And so no matter what, and that's, it was kind of one of those things, like, even if we weren't together, he was still going to be around because of her.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I had to learn to forgive, not just for me, but for the sake of my family.
Yeah.
Right. Because no matter what, he's going to be around, he's going to be in our life. Right. And so, when you can get to the point where you're talking, to your man on the phone and your children's father is right here, talking as well, and there's no issues. I'm like, Lord, this is amazing. Like, because I never thought I would be able to get to that point. But yeah.
And you can speak to that as the man, at the male perspective, because Cassandra had 4 kids?
Yeah.
And none of them were with you, but to you, during that time, all that time y'all were together, those kids, and you had the father and kid bond. And so to you to have to create that new normal, because that's what it is, creating that new normal and try to have that for the kids. How was that being outside the home from the male perspective?
Well, when I got outside the home, I tried to continue my presence as much as she allowed me to. And the number one thing about that, they were my heart, or they still are a part of my heart, right? So, I would go. She would go out of town. I'll go watch them, or pick them up, whatever. Take them out. Take my stepdaughter out on dates. Go to the to eat. did the same things with my sons, and just tried to be an influence. And I told him, I talked to them about what was going on, and no matter what, how much I still loved them and I was proud of them when they make the right decisions. But it was difficult to not be there after being there for almost 15 plus years, watching them grow. What I got Zion, they were 2 and like 5 and 6 years old, and Johnny was he was probably like 10 or something, but he wasn't in a home. He didn't come until till he was like 17. He stayed with his father. But even then, I just accepted them like they were my own. What's the difference? If they get sick, I'm gonna be the one that's gonna take care of them. They get in trouble, I'm gonna discipline them. If they need me for anything, I'm the one that's gonna be there. I busted my butt for them. I did everything that a parent should do, not because they were my blood, because they were my kids, and I loved them. And it's supposed to be that like that. And I understand. I don't understand the disconnect between stepkids and step parents when you know what you're going into. I knew what I was going into, so I accepted the responsibility because I loved her, and a part of her was them. So how could I say I loved her and not love them? I'll never understand it.
And just to kind to switch back to what we were talking about before as far as healing, right? When we
Right.
get on there, because I wanted to ask you guys how the lessons that you learned from your previous relationship, right? How do you hold those, apply those, but without bringing the baggage of those lessons to new relationships, to future relationships? And I believe the key is healing, taking that time to heal yourself. And that's why I think, and I commend you ladies for taking that time to self-care and seek out professional help, because it takes that. We can sit and read and look at some YouTubes, read some books and all that. But if you don't take that time to really invest in your own mental health, and then I definitely want to drive that home to you as a member of the African-American male community, Darren. Don't cheat yourself the opportunity to be whole because you think that enough time or even enough just talking to God. Don't get me wrong, he is king, but he put things down. He gives us the access to certain tools because at the end of the day, God is the number one promoter of self-development. And he wants us to utilize the tools that are here. And like it's been however many years, and you still have that piece that you still have to deal with as far as forgiving yourself. And for me, knowing you the way that I do, I know how you put so much love and time towards so many that you love, and you have that tendency to neglect yourself. This is an example of that. It's not a horrible example of it, but it can be one that impacts you negatively. So just think about that. Definitely take away that part. But I do want to ask you guys, based off of where you are now, how do you navigate that? Because we know, Alicia, you have entered into marriage again, right? You are to that point. You've done your healing. You gave yourself your that space. You found love. You've allowed love to come in, right? Because love was knocking, but we got to open the door, right? And you've opened that door to love. And how do you keep those lessons? You know what I'm saying? And apply them towards your new relationship.
I think healing is ongoing, but it also has to be intentional. I mentioned earlier, the first couple of years, when my husband and I were dating, like I was a brick wall when it came to marriage. We not having a conversation. If I would have married him after 6 months, he would have been ready, but I didn't want to have that conversation. But eventually, what I had to start doing was going back to remember, okay, some of these walls that I had put up then, I probably had those same walls during my marriage, which is not healthy, right? So I had to start tearing down those walls. I had to start realizing, okay, this is not the guy that cheated on you. He is totally different. He is not the man, that cheated on you. That's not who your ex-husband was. And he had to remind me of that a couple of times. The fact that he stayed and continued to love me. I think Darren brought up unconditional love earlier. Just continue to show me that unconditional love. Like God knew what I needed when I needed it. Because I remember asking God, like, why couldn't I have met him like 10 years ago? And one thing God had to point out to me was like, if I would have brought him into your life 10 years ago, you would not have appreciated it. You wouldn't have appreciated it. You wouldn't have given him the time of day. So all that dirt that I had to go through helped me to grow. So it helped me to grow and be the woman that I could be for my husband now. But even now, I ask questions like, look, you good? Do we need to talk about it? You happy? You healthy? You hungry? Like what's going on? What do you need something? And so we intentionally had those conversations with each other because, like I said, healing is ongoing. Even though he had never been married before, he has been in a broken relationship before, right? So we both come into this union with scars, and we both come into this union like having to rebuild trust and understanding that, this is Alicia and this is George. Like this ain't nobody else. Like we're gonna love each other. And that's one thing that we wake up every day. If we had an argument the day before at night, all right, babe, I love you, mwah, mwah, we go to sleep the next morning. Okay, now let's talk about what happened yesterday. So those things they don't fester because again, that's all a part of the healing process. Because if you don't do those things, you will find yourself repeating those patterns and those cycles that you've been delivered from. Because if there's one thing that Satan hates, it is union. He hates fellowship. He hates marriage. He hates unity. He does not like it. And so he will try to do everything in his power to cause division and cause people to divide from each other. So, we have to be on guard and wise in how we react with each other. So that's just my thing. Is just remembering the healing is ongoing and it has to be intentional. The work doesn't stop because you got a revelation 2 years ago, because there could be an event that happens tomorrow that will spark something in me out of nowhere. And I can't just be like, oh well, I'm going back into the shell. No, you got to deal with it. You got to be able to heal from it. So that's my take.
Now, Katisha, you too, while you haven't jumped the whole broom yet, you are definitely in the point of your life where love has re-entered, literally re-entered, like back, like it left something, because it did. It did. Love came back and found you. You are in a loving relationship right now, where you can really, in a healthy and happy way, consider the future, right? But going into your future, at the end of the day, those lessons are coming with you. And what do you do to make sure that whatever your past relationship baggage is not going to come into this new relationship that's flourishing?
So for me, a big key is communication. So if I don't like something, I'll get upset in the moment, but I wait until I calm down and then we'll talk about it, right? So that's any action. And if he's reacting away, I'm like, hey, hold on, like, wait, calm down. Think about it this way, right? So I've not only allowed myself to grow myself, but I've learned ways to communicate and help other people see things differently as well. And that has grown, out of my growth from the divorce and going through in that past relationship. And then also a big one is, and this might sound crazy, but I've learned to let a man be a man, right?
Oh,
Because there
yes,
were some
that is
things
good.
that, with my ex, he would do, but I'm such a giver and a caring, and I like to, if I can help you do something, I want to help you do that. But
Mhm.
sometimes I had to learn he was just saying stuff because he just wanted me to know, not because he wanted me to help or he wanted me to
Mhm.
fix it. Right. And so I've now learned to say, what do you need me to help you with? Or do you just need me to listen? Right. Not automatically assume because he's talking about, this is going on that he wants me to fix it. Right. And it's to the point now in my relationship now, I'll listen and then I'll be like, okay, so what are you going to do? And he'd be like, well, I want your advice. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
So it's
Now that's
really,
different.
helped me. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
So it's really helped me to kind of just take a step back and allow a man to be a man. And then, just also make sure I'm communicating. Don't hold it in, like Alicia said, if there's something that upsets me, at night, I'm gonna send you that text. I love you, but we're gonna talk in the morning, right? All that good stuff. And it's also allowed me to see what I like, right? I like getting texts. Hey, beautiful. Good morning, beautiful. Good morning, queen. I like getting calls. I just called in the middle of the day just to say I love you. I'm like, wow. Oh, okay. Thanks. Like I'm thinking something's wrong. No, I just wanted to tell you I love you. That's it. Go back to work.
Mhm.
Right. So it's allowed me to see those things that help me just to be like, oh wow, this is real. Like this is what it is. And it's a blessing, definitely a blessing.
I like how
Oh,
you said, let a man be a man, because I've asked my husband that before, like, so why you telling me the story? Like, what you want me to do? And he's like, I'm just talking, like, just listen, just
Right.
that's it. Because I would be the same way, like, okay, so if you having problems on your job, you want me to help you find another job? Like that's how I am. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, that is so key. Just let a
Mhm.
man be a man, and yeah, that was good.
Yeah, because we just like to brainstorm sometimes. Sometimes it's just got
Yeah.
to,
Right.
you know,
just to bounce something
right,
off. No, not saying,
That's
hey,
right,
exactly what
fix
he
it.
says. He's like, thank you for allowing me to vent. And I'm like, oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Easy
we be
thing.
so ready to fix the problem, or like
Mm-hmm.
hurry up and get to the root. And it's like, don't rush my story, babe. We just talking. I'm just telling you the story. Like, we eating dinner. I'm just telling you a story. But
Right, for
that's
entertainment purposes only.
right. But I think that comes with because Katisha kind of mentioned it, like all the stuff that we're talking about, like this is we wasn't doing these actions 6 or 7 years ago. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is taking time, and
Mm-hmm.
it requires a lot of effort and self-reflection, because um, and I just pray that this blesses somebody just to be able to understand. Look, this is not an overnight process. Like you can't just put some water in this and put it in the microwave and it's gonna come out. You have to do some hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you feel that you're doing, Darian, that you to make sure that you got your lessons from your previous marriage, you got your, everything that that experience. So
Right.
but there is still trauma there. There is still pain there. So what do you
Hmm.
do to keep that from going to your next relationship? Because right now you're a single man, right? And
Right.
you are open to the fact nobody on this call obviously here, these ladies are not jaded to love. You are not giving me the impression that you're jaded for love. I feel that you still believe in love and marriage and you still want that for yourself, correct?
Absolutely. I
And so
believe
what do
in
you do to
love.
make sure those things from previous relationships, the things that you would not want to bring? You want to bring the experience and the lessons in a positive way and not a negative way.
Right.
So what are you doing to combat that?
Well, number one thing is communication. Like everybody has an issue with communicating, and the level of how you communicate. Because even in the previous situationship I had an issue within in that relationship, and I just a situation happened, and I did not act well in that situation. I blew up. I was mad. I had to be calmed down. It was
Yes, you
crazy.
did.
It was utterly ridiculous. And but from that point on, uh I just communicated, you know, just this how I feel. All right, this is what it made me feel like. This is not it. You're not this if it's not going to be any change, this is who you are. Go ahead and be who you are. You can't be who you are with me. Um, I know what I want. I know my end game is to be married and happy and, you know, in a successful place in life, to be in love, right? So I just do my communicating thing, and I step away. I'll step away, and I keep to myself for a little bit, and then I'll try to revisit the problem and have a discussion about it. If we can have a civil discussion, or if I feel as though that you have that stance within that, and you don't see that you did anything wrong, then what's the point if we can't work and fix whatever the issue is? If you know, because some people will say, well, that's just me. And no, it's not. It's not. You can't
Sometimes it
be.
is though.
But
Sometimes it
yeah,
is. They're in that place. They're in
yeah,
that place
yeah.
where they
Well,
can't, yeah, they can be in that
I-
place. And if that's you, I can't change you.
right, and that's a problem. And I think people should be able to work through certain stuff, but if you can't, then you should just go ahead and, like I said, what my mom said earlier, get gone. Like
Gone.
so,
Can't get
well,
along, get gone.
Get
it,
gone.
gone.
GG.
Gigi.
so it, wa-
Get gone.
it's just one of those things for me. My number one thing that I know, because I'll sit and be in a room and you won't even know that I'm there because I'm just that quiet. But I've just learned to voice my opinion in a more civil matter. I ain't gonna say I'm always cool and calm and collect, because that would be a total lie, right? But to this point, these past couple of months, and well, yeah, couple of months, because I think that was that situation that happened was months ago. I've just learned to communicate with the people, well, not the people, the person that I deal with, and to let her know that everything is, you know, how I feel about certain situations, how you speak to me, did I say something out the way? Just trying to learn her and how I can develop with her if there's going to be anything there. But for me, it's just communicate.
But I think one thing that I can say as a single person, right? Um being with being with somebody is great, but I think when you learn how to be able to focus on your singleness first, that's the most important thing you can do for yourself. I used to look at singleness as like a curse or like a situation. It was like a punishment. Like, oh, what did I do wrong? And once I shifted my perspective on singleness and understood the importance of this time now, and that time is about you. It's not to spend all this time waiting for another person. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of that's an important lesson that in your singleness, everybody has to get, you know, before you go into the lane of married life. And I think anybody who been in a marriage that didn't work can let you know at the end of it, if the marriage don't work, there's back to singleness. And that foundation of you, that foundation of being single, that has to be strong. That's what you have to really put in. And I think the more you work on yourself, because like as you ladies took that time to heal and worked on yourself, even you chick, as you took that time and you remember how what you wanted to be, like you said, you got that peace, you got that happy, the more you put into you, I think that helps you attract the right person. That's what I'm hoping. I try
Absolutely.
to put so much into me that I attract the person that God has for me. Would you
Yeah.
say that that's a a good,
Absolutely.
healthy way to go about it, Alicia and Katisha, as somebody who done found people that on that other side of it? What would you say, Alicia?
Definitely. And I think Katisha really hit on it when she talked about um, just being capable of being loved. Because sometimes as women, when we go through those hardships, we feel like, okay, well, maybe I'm not worthy of love. But when you start getting those text messages like, hey, beautiful, and you realize, okay, there's no ulterior motive attached to this. This is someone who genuinely cares about me, who is genuinely concerned, and they want to show me that love.
Can we do a full disclosure moment though, Alicia, and say that there are some pimps out there that will send out messages, ladies,
There are.
to multiple
There
people.
They
the
are.
same.
They
So
are.
make
There
sure that's
are.
not all you getting. If all you getting is Texas, block them. Okay, that's all I had to say. Go ahead.
That is yeah, that's where you got to use some wisdom and discernment in there. You can't just be receiving love from everybody. But yeah, but and you know what, that was one thing that actually attracted me to my husband, because we when we first met, like, we actually met online. And one thing that turned me off from guys is they would be like, hey, beautiful, hey, sexy. Like, you don't know me like that. Like, I know I got a nice picture. I know I got a nice smile and all those things. But like it was just, hey, my name is, how are you? And it's so lame, but it was just like, I just need, like, like, thank you. Like, I don't want to hear all about this and what you're doing. And, he was God knew what I needed. But so that way I kind of started learning him and knowing, okay, this guy's really genuine. I know men are, sexual creatures, and they see with their eyes, and they like what they see, and they like, but let that not be the first conversation we have. Come on now.
I mean, for the most part, yeah, we are sexual creatures, but not all. And sometimes it's not, it's a compliment. Sometimes we don't know how to compliment you guys, right? So we go with the basic stuff that we know, that or we seen before, or that may have worked before. So
Yeah.
sometimes you get stuck in that. So hey, good morning, beautiful. Oh, this is gonna be, another dude wasn't doing this. Let me go ahead and do this. And then when we get the response back, like, nah, how you know you don't know me all the way through? Of course not. I don't know that you
Not
all the way through. All I see, all I see is your picture. Or we go from that. You guys make
You
yourself
said
so
all the way
beautiful.
through.
Because I don't know your personality. I don't know if you're mean. I don't know if whatever it is. You may be a kind, giving
I'm
person.
not a mean person. And luckily I never responded to anybody like that. But when he sent me his, hey, my name is George, my response, it was like, well, hey, that did take me, a couple of months to get my phone number. But because I had to make sure.
Especially when you online.
To make sure, like, we're talking about life after divorce. So again, like, I am looking through this whole thing with some rose-colored glasses, and I don't know, like, I don't know, but yeah. So, like I said, yeah, we deserve to be loved as women, and
But I think that I feel like we attract men that will love us and respect us when they sense that we love and respect ourselves.
Definitely.
And I think that's the same thing for men, because when men don't have no respect for themselves, it show. It show. And then you get that vibe, like, because and it's not, it's not always the ones that's, hey, showed it ain't them all the time. It could be somebody who made all the way nice. You got your dive hat on, but you don't have any respect for yourself. And all of that is it shows. And so it's sooner or later it's going to come out. So I just think it's important for us to really spend that time in singleness, especially if that's what we're looking for. If we're looking for ultimately to be one with somebody, we first have to be one with ourselves and of course with God. And then
Yeah.
once those relationships, that's what the relationship goes that I think single people need to prioritize, because I think when we prioritize our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with God, he'll make sure all the other relationships come in place. And we just have to be, really mindful about that. And so let me ask you in closing here, guys, what advice would you give someone, one contemplating divorce or going through a divorce, as somebody on the other side of it? Because you have people that's, sitting there knowing they're not happy, knowing that they are, and it's not so much, it's different extremes. It's those people that's getting abused verbally, physically, but it's those people that are just emotionally abused, emotionally neglected, not happy, disrespected. And and it's not, and I don't want to make it seem like divorce is always the answer, because like Darian was saying before, people can overcome those things. And I've heard of those stories of people that was in dark places in marriages and they grew together, but you got to be willing to do that thing. But if you with somebody who's not willing to grow, you got to be the first to admit that to yourself and to that person. But if you are, if you had a couple of words to say to someone that is contemplating this or going through this, of encouragement, of on the other side, from somebody on the other side of it, because that unknown can be a killer. And they journey not gonna be your journey, but it's still good to hear from somebody who's already experienced it. Words from love, not from fear. Because you had those people that just be like, don't do it. You should have never did it. I wish I never did it. Those people, that's not what we trying to translate here. Divorce is not what we're saying should be everybody's goal. Let's be real about that. But if if that's the road that you must travel, it doesn't have to be the end, right? It is life after divorce. If you are not divorced for the rest of your life, you just went through one. So as those people have been through that, what would you give those people contemplating or going through it? Let's start with you, Katisha.
Exactly what you said. There is life after divorce. Divorce is just an event. It's not the rest of your journey, right? It even goes to like, when you mark in the little circle on the paper, it's funny, they say married, single, divorce. Well, my divorce was an event, right? It's not the rest of me. So I'm single.
Yes.
Right.
I'm not, I don't claim that I'm divorced, right? Because that was an event. That doesn't define my status right now. So, know that there's life after the divorce, right? Know that you will get through it, right? You're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days. And that goes for women and men, right? We all go through that emotional turmoil, and you're going to have those days, but you got to push through it, find your inner strength, and get through it. And I promise you, one of the things I've learned to do is go back to the things that brought me happiness as a child, right? So for me, it was coloring. So I find myself, when I get to that point, I'll pick up a little adult coloring book, or I go on my little tablet, I'll color, or I'll paint with the kids. Like, it's a lot of things that you can do to kind of take your mind off of things and help you get through those little tough times. But be strong. Like, the strength is there. You just got to find it. You got to pull on it. And you will get through this. It's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of something new. It really is.
Darian, what advice would you give someone contemplating a divorce or going through one?
Communication and being humble enough to know that although there is an issue there, that you can work through it and you'll be just fine. It's not gonna, hopefully, because we don't know what situation is going on, that you're not gonna die from it. And being alone is fine. I love being by myself at times. Like, I love, when I first got divorced, before that little rekindling stage, I was going to the movies by myself. I was going to take myself out to dinner, the gym, and that's where I found my solace at, like the gym, going to the gym, getting a workout in, or just like walks in the park and stuff like that. And being around that unconditional love that I mentioned before with my friends and my family. So just know all of that is waiting on you if either way, because if you can fix your relationship, then you can have all of those things included with the person that you love, that you went into the marriage. That's what you went into the marriage for anyway. But if not, that it's still, you still gonna have love, and you'll be able to find love soon as it's meant and you're ready for it.
Well said. And Alicia.
Well, I think Katisha took the words out of my mouth, because I was going to say divorce is an event. Just because the marriage failed doesn't mean that you are a failure or that you have failed. It's just something that happened. And then secondly, whether you're contemplating divorce or whether you're going through a divorce, both ends of the spectrum require work. And the only person that can start the work is you. So if you're contemplating, but you want to save your marriage, start doing the work in order to heal your marriage, heal yourself, heal your spouse. If you're going through a divorce and you've already started that motion, then start doing the work to heal yourself, and just know that it's not an overnight process. You know, there are going to be good days, there are going to be bad days, there are going to be days where you regret the decision that you make, but stand firm and trust God. You know, I think all of us are a testament to the good times that can happen after a divorce. It's not the end of your life. It's not the end. God wants you to be whole. He wants you to be happy, and he doesn't want anybody in any situation that's not serving him. So if that's a situation that you're in, already know that God is not going to force you to stay in it. So, but do the work.
Do the work. Thank you guys so much for being here and being so transparent with your stories. I wish you all the best in your new chapters and in your life after divorce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Thank you so much to Katisha, Alicia, and Darian for coming onto the show and sharing your journey through the battlefield that is divorce. I really appreciate your transparency. And for anybody out there, if this conversation, if this content spoke to you, please like it, please share it, and definitely please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember, you can also listen to us on iHeart Radio as well as Apple Podcasts. So there it is. Divorce. Nobody wants to get to that scenario, but if you get to it, it doesn't have to be the end. Remember, no matter what's going on, God can make whatever challenges you face work out for your good if you trust him. And I know on this road, loving God can be easy. Trusting God can be hard. But I believe we can all get there one step at a time on this Christian walk. I'll see you next time.
Walk with me, talk with me. What you know about God? Will he ride with me? Come and open my eyes for me, hear my story. Show me more what's in store. And once more, listen homie, can you walk with me? Talk with me. What you know about God? Will he ride with me? Come and open my eyes for me, hear my story. Show me more what's in store. And once more, listen homie, can you walk? Can you walk? Let's walk.